Philippines went from being one of the richest countries in Asia, second behind Japan back in the 1950s, to now, well, more recently being called the sick man of Asia. You said that you'd have to be Superman and Einstein combined to fix your country's problems. 2 years in to a 6-year term, do you feel that you're making progress?
Yes, definitely we're making progress. When we started out, I can honestly say that for the first 3 months, we were really looking forward to Friday evening, because there would be a break before the rediscovery of all of the problems that were bequeathed to us. I started out in public service in 1998 after the Asian financial crisis of '97, and the constant refrain was, we don't have money, we don't have money, we don't have money. Now, last year we were being criticized that we had the money and we weren't spending it quickly enough. And I think that's just such a turnaround in roughly about a year and a half. No? Look at the...
Are you now investing that money into the community?
We have been from day one. And an accelerated program also for this year. Look at the credit ratings agencies. Now we've gotten multiple credit rating agencies.
Well, I want to talk about that, President, because you are making headway with the economy. The government is forecasting 4% growth. As you say, the rating agencies have upgraded the status of the Philippines, and foreign investment is coming in. Let me ask you, can you sustain this moving forward?
I think a lot of this is pent-up desire to invest in the country, but they were prevented from doing so before because it was, how should I put it, wrong governance or misgovernance made the playing field not level, made it opaque in terms of what are the actual rules.
One of your biggest exports is your workers. More than 10% of your population is shipped overseas, many of those to be domestic helpers in Hong Kong, Singapore, elsewhere in Asia, obviously the Middle East. The remittances generate $20 billion, which is something like 9% of your GDP. Obviously, this is very financially beneficial for your country.
In the short term, yes.
But are you happy with this arrangement?
No, well, the focus of my administration is if somebody decides to work abroad, then it has to be from choice as opposed to necessity.
But this is not a choice, though.
That's why we are working on, that's why the investments on education, that's why we're investing in infrastructure, that's why we're going on all of these campaigns to attract the investors to come back in.
As it stands now, the status quo is that 10% of your population is shipped off overseas. Many of these people are qualified professionals. They're nurses, they're teachers, they have university degrees, but they can earn more money as domestic helpers, cleaning other people's homes and raising other people's children than they can in their profession back in the Philippines. Yes. Is that not a sad indictment on your country?
Precisely, that's why we are striving to get them the opportunities here. But again, if we can have, my dream, my personal dream is, if they're here, then we don't have issues about what happens to the nuclear family down the line, especially if both parents are gone. If they're here, they can positively contribute to our economy. So I'll go back. The thrust is, if you leave, you wanted to rather than you had to.
President, you mentioned the nuclear family, and the way that it stands at the moment is that this dysfunctional society has been created because of this workforce that has been shipped overseas. Children are being raised by their grandparents because their mothers are working as helpers. How does this make you feel when you see what is happening to the fabric of your society?
Again, that's a situation that I would rather not have. When I go through areas where most of the embassies are, and I see the queues of people applying for visas, it pushes me to work even harder to be able to provide the necessary opportunities for them, even if we don't match the salaries elsewhere. Staying with your family adds, it becomes part of the equation that you can accept a lower salary and still have a better quality of life in the export on a personal basis.
The economic news in your country is very positive and is looking even more positive moving forward, but at the end of the day, the Philippines is one of the poorest countries in Southeast Asia. The gap between the rich and poor is enormous. You have more than a third of your population living on $1 a day. When will it change for those 30 million people living in extreme poverty?
So it's all a question of empowering. We need jobs for these people. We need jobs that are not totally unskilled and therefore at the bottom of the feeding trough. It has to be So provision of the skills, get them opportunities elsewhere that will pay them better wages is being done.
One of the big reasons that there is poverty in this country is the lack of contraception, or the fact that contraception
Okay.
is not allowed. I mean, and the church at the end of the day is responsible for this.
That's incorrect. Contraception is not allowed. It's not. I think that is incorrect. There is no law that bans the use of contraception, except certain that are deemed questionable, that pose health risks.
Well, the church frowns on contraception.
The church doesn't make the laws in this country. They have significant influence, but they don't make the laws.
Well, some people would say that the church has way too much power in this country.
The point that there is already ready for debate on the floor of the House, the particular law which we call responsible parenthood. And our take on that primarily is the state is required to remind all of our countrymen, those contemplating marriage, that they have responsibilities for the children they're bringing in. As to what methods they will choose, that is left to their decision.
On the issue of Congress, a family planning bill has tried to get through several times, and it has been knocked back by Congress. Mm-hmm. Why is that?
Well, as you said, the Catholic Church is a very significant influence. There are those that are they're a microcosm of our society. There are very conservative elements or members of Congress. But I understand they are actually undergoing the period of debate already on the proposed measure. And I expect a vote to happen on that particular measure. And as the chief executive, we will execute what law they will pass.
But if contraception was readily available and it was acceptable in society, do you not think then that the growth rate that you're experiencing, 2%, would be reduced?
You don't have to convince me on that. And also, the growth of the economy will be a natural factor in limiting population growth also. And we have been doing what is necessary for those who cannot afford these particular methods and to make it available to them.
But do you think it is time for the Catholic Church to change its views here in the Philippines?
That is the consensus emanating from the Pope and the side of the bishops and so on and so forth. I'm sure that there is ongoing debates within the Church itself. And at the end of the day, I do remember that a principal part of their teaching is the idea of freedom of choice. That one of the greatest gifts of God is to give us free will.
Turning people power into political action. President, where do you see your country in 10 years' time?
May we invite you to come back and you will not recognize what it will be in 10 years' time. In fact, the target is not 10 years' time, the target is 4 years' time.
Coming up, a long list of goals for a president settling into his term. President, we're here at the portrait of Ferdinand Marcos. What do you think when you look at him?
Like any other else. He had such an opportunity, not just in his 2 regular terms, but more importantly during the martial law years, to have really done something for this country.
Do you think that he ruined the Philippines?
Yes, significantly. He came in 65, and you yourself was quoting that, and there's a recent picture in Time magazine that says our heyday was in the 60s.
Yeah, well, 1950s, you were the second richest country in Asia.
The dollar conversion rate was at least 4-1 when he started out. By the time of the finish of his first term, it was 8-1. By the time he left, it was 25-1.
Now, his family wanted him to be buried in the Heroes Cemetery.
And not under my watch.
But it's taking a real stand, isn't it?
They can sue me, they can impeach me if they feel they have the numbers for it. But again, I will have to be true to the people. And when I say the people, the vast majority who were not part of his clique, who suffered then and continue to suffer now.
The United States has said that it's taken its eye off the ball when it comes to the Asia-Pacific region, and they are far more committed to becoming more involved. Are you reassured by this? Is this a good thing for the region?
I think it is a good thing for the region in the sense that we're one of the most dynamic regions in the world at the present time. A very significant amount of the world's trade and growth comes from this area. And the preservation of freedom of navigation, which is an espoused line by the Americans, should be observed. They have also indicated at the same time that they do not want to go back in the period of time where they were the dominant power of this particular region. The ambassador here has often stated that fact. Now, again, in the sense that there are two superpowers present, that there is a possibility of a balance. And the balance precludes any of the situations or the temptation from any state lording it over anybody else.
Here in the Philippines, you do have a problem with warlords. There are something like 100 private armies operating throughout the country. Obviously, the Mindanao massacre back in 2009 claimed the lives of 57 people, including 31 journalists. It really demonstrated, I guess, a sense of lawlessness in your country. Are you getting on top of this?
Those people who were responsible for the Mindanao massacre, most of them are incarcerated and undergoing trial. That is administration's policy to nurture, sustain, or let alone allow any of them to continue their activities. You know, what I inherited was a 14% conviction rate. So when I was a senator, I asked during a budget deliberation, how does one get promoted when he fails 86% of the time? And their explanation was basically your ability to shuffle paper from one desk to another. So under administration, I said, that is no longer the case. Your ability to stay in the job and get promoted is dependent on your victories that you will secure in advancing the cause of justice.
President, where do you see your country in 10 years' time?
May we invite you to come back and you will not recognize what it will be in 10 years' time. In fact, the target is not 10 years' time, the target is 4 years' time. You will have a country, hopefully, that is self-sufficient in the staples, that is a net exporter of food, because we have met our food security issue. You will have a judicial system that does not have a lot of decisions that are absurd, but rather really based on our laws.
If your parents were here right now, what do you think they would say about your performance?
Then my parents, they will always want me to strive harder. So they'll probably say, kulang pa, which is Tagalog for not enough. So, and when they're talking with each other, they'll be praising each other for their role in raising me up. But when they talk to me, they'll say, hey, what you've done is still not enough. No, if I give them 100, it should have been 200 yesterday. And that's really just their style.
But do you think they'd be proud of the direction that you are heading in at the moment?
Yes, but they won't show it to me.